Am I the a-hole for walking out after I opened the gift my stepson bought me for Father's Day? So I, male 37, have 2 stepkids, girl 11 and boy 16. My stepdaughter is the apple of my eye. I love her to pieces, but my stepson has a difficult personality. He never does anything with us. He never let me help him with anything and keeps his distance from me. He also never tells me about his problems or achievements, and it's been difficult trying to establish a good bond with him like my stepdaughter. My wife says that's his nature, so I should stop pressuring him, and that was until he recently started spending time with me, but every time he'd pull a nasty prank. Like replace my shampoo, or ruin my credit card, or ruin my tires and rear lights. This caused a rift between us, especially since my wife says those are pranks. But I was worried for my safety and got paranoid from getting in the car or going to the supermarket with a ruined credit card, so I kept my distance. On Father's Day, I took my wife and stepson and daughter to her parents' house for breakfast. I received a beautiful gift from my stepdaughter and didn't expect my stepson to get me anything as always. But he did bring me a gift. It looked like a nice gift in a box and was beautifully wrapped and introduced. I was so excited and happy because all I was thinking of was not the gift itself, but the fact my stepson is finally letting me be a part of his life and remembering me on Father's Day, so it meant the world to me. That was already my gift, but I couldn't wait to open it and show him my appreciation and gratitude. Well, I opened the box and saw a stinky old sock of mine that I'd lost a couple months ago placed inside. The look on my face said it all. My stepson then encouraged me to show everybody what he'd got me. I didn't want to, but my father-in-law took the box and pulled out the sock. He looked confused, and my stepson started laughing hysterically, and so did the others. It was an absolute horrible moment, and I wished I could just jump out of the window and run away from embarrassment. I just got up and walked out of the room silently while my stepson was laughing from behind. My wife came in to tell me that I overreacted massively, and my stepson was just messing with me, meaning it was just a prank. But he embarrassed me in front of the entire family, and frankly, I don't give a crap about a gift, but what he did felt so humiliating that I almost cried. She yet again said that I shouldn't have walked out like that, and that I made it awkward since I'm the adult and I should have handled this better. I left my in-laws' house and my wife and kids are still there. My wife is upset that I left and wanted to get some time alone and a good cry and remember my dad and try to keep my mind off what happened earlier. Am I the asshole for this? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I think I might be the asshole for walking out and making an awkward moment more awkward when I could have simply laughed at his prank. Not the a-hole. At first I was thinking he was being 16, but the more I read, I'm horrified. And your wife is enabling this by taking his side constantly and allowing it to go unpunished. The kid needs therapy. These are not pranks, and you shouldn't have to put up with this. Your wife needs to change the way she handled him, or I would be out that door. Not the a-hole. What prank involves damaging CC and cars? She needs a reality check. Seriously, OP, your stepson is either a sociopath or a major asshole. Your wife is an enabler, and honestly, I don't think I'd put up with this poor treatment, stepson or not. I think it's harmful to diagnose people over the internet, especially with stuff as misunderstood as cluster B disorders. The kid's an ass regardless though. Not the asshole, and I'm sorry your wife is enabling her child to be disrespectful, mean, and a little crap. Your wife is so the asshole here. The stepson does what he is allowed to do. You need to address this with your wife, like now, and she needs to rein in her little devil. It's not cute, and it's not pranks. Unless you and your wife are on the same page, things will only get worse. Perhaps it's time to walk away. Your wife doesn't respect you at all. Not the asshole. You left a situation that was meant to embarrass you. Your stepson is a jerk. Messing with credit cards and your car aren't pranks. It's malicious vandalism, and the fact his mum doesn't do anything to him is ridiculous. If he did that stuff to anyone outside the family, he'd get reamed out, if not charged with a crime for the stuff with a car. Take your time and have a sit down with your wife and tell her you aren't overreacting. She's enabling her son to be a jerk. I hope OP's wife and stepson are not expecting him to pay towards stepson's college costs, and if OP gets pressured to do this, he should walk. Our next post is by user Shimria, titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to let my ex have Father's Day with our kids so her husband can celebrate with them? Ex and I divorced 11 years ago. We have 2 teens aged 14 and 13. Kids live primarily with me because when she left, it was to be with her current husband who lived in another town. I remained primary custodian because I wasn't the moving parent. She was, which was causing the upheaval. Anyway, they see the kids every other weekend, extended periods during summer, and for every other holiday. Ex and her husband have 3 kids together. Ex has always asked that we alternate Father's Day since the kids have known him most of their lives, and because they have siblings through him, and it's important to celebrate the day as a family sometimes. I always said no because they are my kids, and I want to see them on Father's Day. This year seems to be the year pissing them off the most because the kids are choosing to not spend extended periods of the summer with them, and she thinks it's more important than ever for them to have that family time, for those memories to be made with their family. She and her husband have been texting me all morning with their annoyance at my decision, and I even had her family on my case about it. It's weighed me down enough, and I've been called an asshole enough that I have to ask, am I the asshole? And OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I am open to hearing that I'm the asshole because my kids already don't see them a lot, and sacrificing this day so they can spend it with their other family and to make memories with their siblings wouldn't kill me. I could also be the asshole because he has been a part of their lives for so long, and I'm not willing to share with him. Now in the comments, Always Sunny says, "You're their father, and your ex thinks you are somehow the asshole for wanting to spend Father's Day with your own children? 100% not the asshole. Yeah, because her husband has been a good father figure in their lives, and he's the father of their siblings. I don't fully believe it, but the doubt is there because this has been a constant in my ear for about 2 months now. Sounds like she's putting her husband before her kids. Rude. She already did that when she abandoned them for him 11 years ago. Ouch. True. Not the a-hole? Hell, most paperwork nowadays already have it pre-printed that the kids will spend Father's Day with their father and Mother's Day with their mother. Remind them that Father's Day is not a family holiday. It's about celebrating their father, and since he's not their father, they won't be spending it with them. If this pisses her off, so be it. Her pissiness is not your problem. Came here to say exactly this. It's a standard for obvious reasons. OP, Father's Day is your holiday, Mother's Day is hers. Full stop, not the a-hole." Our next post is by user BothSweet8077, titled, "Am I the asshole for snapping at my in-laws when they tried to influence us to force our adopted son to meet his birth mother? So my husband and I adopted his nephew Kai when he was 6 years old. He had a rough start. His birth mother was never involved, and my husband's brother was a single parent for 5 years of Kai's life. Then my husband's brother met a woman. They were together for a while and got engaged. All while, Kai never met her. Kai met her and found out they were expecting a baby the day of the wedding. He knew his dad had someone, but no introduction had taken place. What followed was Kai was placed second to the new baby girl, and eventually he came to live with us, and a few months after his 6th birthday. In the space of a year, he had his whole world turned upside down, and it left a major mark on him. It has been hard to get him into a more secure place. He suffers with many self-esteem issues, and has been in therapy since we became his legal guardians. His self-esteem took a hit when we got pregnant with our 2nd child. First bio, but counting kids, we count Kai as our first. And it took a lot for him to be okay. But he adores her, and they have a great relationship. Then it happened again with our 3rd child. First he was afraid we would dump our daughter for the new baby. Then he was afraid that she would love baby brother more than him. Thankfully, he was able to get through it all with love and therapy. There was another hit to him when one of his so-called friends bullied him. It really messed with him, and it showed that things can cause setbacks. He had been bullied before, and it didn't bother him because the kid was just some kid, but a friend doing it hurt. Anyway, I say all this because he can still struggle, and some things cause setbacks. Maybe certain things always will, or maybe he needs more time. His old therapist always said he always made progress, even when he had a setback. He was never as bad as the last time. And we really should listen to him and trust our guts. But she retired, and now we have a new therapist. This therapist told us, upon learning his birth mother had reached out and wanted to see him, that we should discard what he wants. He doesn't want to meet her, and force him because it would be healing for him. We worry about a setback, and a more major one too, being she's his birth mother. My husband's parents learned some of this from talking to Kai, and then they started pushing us to make him meet her. They say he deserves to know her, that it would be good for him to have that experience. We told them no. My husband said they needed to drop it because it was not their decision. But they persisted, and Friday, they came to me while I was alone and called me selfish and said I was jealous. And I snapped. I told them how dare they say it when they aren't the ones who deal with every setback, who have to deal with the nightmares, the sleepless nights, the endless worrying about how to manage when he's in a bad place. I basically let it all out in a tidal wave of emotion, and they're pissed and said I was an ass for ranting at them. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I think I might be the asshole for unleashing all of that on my in-laws. Part of me feels like they were just trying to help, but the other part tells me that it's unfair because they can't understand when they don't live with us, and they haven't needed to be there for Kai the way my husband and I have. And that's fair enough. Screw them, screw your therapist, go get a new one and continue to follow the advice of a new therapist that will tell you the right things. It's obvious through the actions of these in-laws that they're up to no good, and they will only continue to do damage to this kid who is apparently and very obviously messed up by what these people have done to them. You have every right to be angry about this, you have every right to question this, and thank you for coming to people that can tell you, at least, it is biased, but it's for the better of your family, I would hope. No one besides you seems to have Kai's best interests at heart in this situation, and that's very apparent. I'm going with not the a-hole. It was good that you snapped at your in-laws for trying to get him to meet his birth mother again. That's not on. That is a very bad idea. Now in the comments, Killian Ellis says, not the a-hole. And get a new therapist. Your current one sounds like she does not have Kai's best interests at heart. Came here to say just that. Also not the a-hole. Facts, dog, that was a radical summation. Honestly, what the therapist thinks he or she is probably encouraging for Kai is exposure therapy. But exposure therapy is only good in certain circumstances, this not being one of them. Exposure therapy with trauma is a very difficult tactic to balance between re-traumatizing and healing. The therapist doesn't know Kai long enough to have the repertoire with him to encourage something so drastic around something so traumatic, or that could open up or make wounds last, and more hurtful wounds. As someone whose mother wasn't present from a young age, my mother reaching out later created a whole crap show of emotions for me. That's not including that my father actually stayed and didn't toss me aside for another child, so I can't imagine what Kai is going through. However, do you know what my therapist said when I told them about my mum reaching out? They said, if you are not ready, you don't have to rush to talk to her. You don't owe her a friendship with you, and it's up to you if you want to forgive her for abandoning you. It's up to you, and if you are not ready or don't even want to, then you don't have to. That is your decision, and your decision alone, and I will respect and help you with that decision. Obviously, there was a lot more in-depth stuff in between specific to my case, but that sums it up. And it's not even encouraging stepping outside one's comfort zone, like what exposure therapy does. But they literally told OP to discard Kai's feelings. What the hell? OP, you do not want someone who disregards your son's feelings openly to you, talking to them about serious personal and traumatic crap behind closed doors. They could invalidate his feelings and make his self-esteem 100 times worse. Therapists are supposed to be supportive and unbiased, and the professional, so them invalidating him repeatedly in session would extremely hurt him and future attempts at therapy. For Kai to meet his mother, he first has to be willing and open to doing so. Otherwise, he would be extremely uncomfortable and could have a panic attack. There is also something you would need to plan ahead for that could cause a major setback. Kai meeting his mother, either being abandoned in the first meeting, or worse, developing a bond with her and then her abandoning him all over again. This right here is a major risk for his mental health, especially since his father, who he actively had a bond with, abandoned him. If he doesn't want to right now, do not force him, and watch out for in-laws trying to sneak in a meeting between the two of them when you or your partner aren't around. So get a new therapist and monitor the in-laws, since they probably know his bio mom and could reach out to her on your half. Also, keep an open dialogue with Kai, telling him to tell you if his grandparents do anything that he isn't comfortable with, like introducing him to someone he isn't comfortable with, without directly stating about his mom, and that you also won't force him to meet her. So in case they do pull that sneaky crap, he knows to come talk to you and that you weren't a part of it. Good luck, OP. And here for the laughs 1234 says, not the a-hole. And you might want to consider a new therapist if possible. For someone with as much upheaval as Kai has had, disregarding his choices and forcing him to be around people he doesn't want to be around would most likely cause another setback. It would also teach him that his wants and needs don't matter, and he has no control over his life. Your in-laws can shove it too. They keep pushing you, so they got what they got. And OP replies, it's on our to-do list. She was assigned, and because of the pandemic, we have been behind on a lot of stuff. That's totally understandable. Not all therapists work for everyone, and it can be a process finding the right one. You know Kai best, and you clearly love him, and want what's best for him. Am I the asshole for not wanting my half-brother to have the same name as me? This is a really weird question, but for some reason, it's turned into a whole issue. When I, 16 male, was born, my parents named me Giuseppe after my grandpa on my mum's side. My parents got divorced when I was 5, but my mum got sick when I was 12 and passed away a year later, so I had to go live full-time with my dad. 2 years ago, my dad started dating Kaylee until they got married. I'm not close with Kaylee, but that's not because we don't like each other. We just don't talk a lot, and I'm always staying with my grandma or uncle on my mum's side when I'm not at my dad's. They found out they're pregnant months ago, and also learned that it's a boy. Ever since, Kaylee keeps saying she also wants her son to be named Giuseppe, because she likes the name so much and how it sounds. I straight up told her that's my name, and it would be very weird having my half-bro having the exact same name as me. Kaylee said that it wasn't weird at all, and I don't own the name, so I can't say it's mine. She seemed really mad that I called it weird and said that I should get used to it because that's the name they're deciding on. My dad backed her up at first, but we talked a little more, and I just told him that it didn't feel right for the two of us to have the exact same name, and maybe that could be a middle name or something if she likes it so much. He talked to Kaylee about changing it to a middle name so the first name can be something else, but she just got more mad. Now she says I'm ruining this whole experience by making a big deal over a name. My dad is in the middle. He's willing to back me up and not let Kaylee name their baby that, but says that I should just let it go. My uncle, Dad's brother, and some of my friends agree that it's weird, but Kaylee is being super cold, so I don't know if I'm wrong here. Am I the asshole? Look, I agree with you that she is being super weird in this situation. Finally, someone actually has some sense in this subreddit and agrees with you that it's weird, and your dad isn't just being a flying monkey for this woman. I'm pretty sure Giuseppe number 2 is going to find it weird also when they grow up and they're like, oh yeah, why do I have the same name as you? That's kind of odd, isn't it? I don't get why she has such a tight grip on the name, but it's obviously not too good in this situation and no one else agrees with it but her. So I'm going to go with not the a-hole for this. Now in the comments, Hollow Rose says, not the a-hole. Personally, I find that really weird. I'm surprised your dad agreed to it at first. Dad only agreed because she's the one usually in charge and can withhold fun time. Not the a-hole OP. That's just wrong, and I think the middle name would be fine, but she'd probably call him by the middle name then. Call me cynical and hardened to toxic families, but my worst assumption is she wants to replace his kid that she likes less with a new one by the same name. She's trying to cause a divide, and OP should keep making a stink about it. I think that's exactly what's going on. She views OP as baggage, and this lets her kill two birds with one stone. She replaces the kid she views as baggage, and she pursued a plan that predictably has upset OP and distances him from his father. It's incredibly calculated and cruel. And also, OP is not named after her or his dad. It's OP's mum's dad. Neither of them have any personal connection except for OP, so it's absolutely either intentional or they are denser than depleted uranium. See, that's what I was confused about. Why would she want to use a family name from his mother's side? That's just petty and stupid. Not the a-hole, she's jealous of OP and his mother and wants the confusion of names. Oh, I meant my son. Couldn't correctly spell the name, lol. This is the most screwed up crap I've ever seen. Beth Taylor 1223 says, not the a-hole. That's weird as hell for two brothers to have the same name. Where is the baby's sense of identity when he literally has the same name as his brother? Where is his individuality? They did this to Vincent van Gogh and it messed up his head. In the Netherlands, it was very common to reuse a name if a previous child was stillborn or died very young. It happened to my father-in-law who got the name of a brother who was deceased before FIL was born, 1943. The difference there being that the previous child is dead. It happens in Ireland too. It makes genealogy fun, but never with a still living child. That's a bad omen. And Mary the Penguin says, not the a-hole obviously. If it were me, I would have said, I'm honoured you would name your firstborn after me. I would be such a pretentious prig about it that she would no longer want to use the name. Yes, this is awesome. Maybe also double down, and since OP is already so much older, pretend to muse aloud. I bet a lot of people will think he's really mine since he's named after me, so let's call him Junior in public. Look, I'm not 100% on how that naming tradition works, but would not be shy about telling my stepmother that he'll be a junior on a technicality, and then referring to the new baby by all of the junior nicknames. Chip, GJ, JR, Junior, Junie, Little G, and Little Giuseppe. I would also be making every joke I could, like, Little G, like a little gangster. That's so cool. Look, I'm eating Chip. You know, our little Chip. Do you think you'll get any of my teachers? Maybe they'll think you found a way to clone me. Giuseppe too, the return of Giuseppe. And now onto the update. So my little bro was born last week, and I'm still the only Giuseppe in the family, and my grandpa. I did like some of you were saying to do, and had another talk with my dad to get him to understand. I'm glad everyone agreed that it was super weird, and for bringing up that it could cause some identity issues in the future if we have the same name. Plus the fact that it feels like she's trying to replace me and take a name away that she didn't even know about until she met me. My dad actually heard me this time, and he said he was sorry for not fully thinking about how this would make me feel. He listened more when I brought up the identity thing and how it could cause problems for us in the future, so thanks for mentioning that. But after that, he still wouldn't talk to Kaylee about changing her mind. My uncle, his brother, and his other family actually started giving him crap after I told them. They told him that's weird AF, and my uncle even told Kaylee too, which made her super mad. So after that, my dad was like, okay, he's not going to be named that at all. They had a lot of fights over it because Kaylee wouldn't let it go, but my dad said there was no way in hell the baby was also going to be named Giuseppe, and they were going to have a big problem if she tries to name him that. Not going to say he threatened to end things because I wasn't in the room when they had their fight, but it was pretty big the way he said it. So yeah, she gave up, but she was being super bitchy to me for a while. It was awkward, but whatever. I was just glad she stopped with the name thing. and the name they gave my bro isn't close to mine at all. Anyway, he's really cute, my dad says he looks just like me when I was born, and it's gonna be boring until I can play with him in a few months, lol. Kaylee's still being different, but she doesn't say anything when I'm holding my brother. He cries a lot, but I love him a lot, and I'm happy that he's not Giuseppe 2.0. Now in the comments, Shiv315 says, I find it weird that your dad didn't talk to Kaylee after you spoke with him. He only talked to Kaylee after his family tore into him. That's because he's a spineless partner. He only cared when he was made fun of directly, not so much when his kid felt uncomfortable. Uncle made Dad upset because Uncle made fun of Dad about the name, and that's what caused him to change. Interesting. That is telling of bad character in my book. But for OP's sake, I'm glad the final result was satisfactory, even if the why was... I'm struggling to think of the right word, and I hope it's not too mean to say pathetic, but I can't think of a better word. Caring about your kids' feelings is great, but only caring when you were directly made fun of by your brother is pathetic parenting in my book. It's a bad reason to change. The right reason was for your kid, not yourself. So maybe it's more that I see his selfish reason for actually changing as a sign of bad character. Also, in my book, he more or less didn't care about the feelings and well-being of both children, because no way in hell the name sharing would have had any positive effect on either boy. I mean, for frick's sake, normal people wouldn't even name their dogs the same name, at the same time. Amara Undone says, I can't believe anyone besides George Foreman would even consider naming their kids the same thing. Here are my 8 children, all named George, lol. Same. And Hobnob1974 says, I missed this the first time around, and oh my, your little brother dodged a bullet there. My grandfather gave his son with a new wife the same name as my dad. Let's say Joe. Now, at the royal age of 58, he's still Little Joe and will be Little Joe until my dad dies. Unsurprisingly, he's not close to my dad and resents him. Our next post is by user Throwaway for Privacy 76, titled, Am I the a-hole for requesting a doctor that is more fluent in my language? So this is a throwaway account and I'm on mobile, so excuse my formatting. Also, I'm not a native English speaker. Important background info, I'm autistic and have ADHD. Due to this, I have some problems with auditory processing, aka I hear just fine, but sometimes my brain just refuses to process the information. It feels like you've been spoken to in a language that you didn't speak. My APD, auditory processing disorder, acts up more with certain ways of speaking. E.g., stuttering or unusual speaking rhythm are very hard for me to understand. The problem arose when I got a new psychiatrist. He's not native to my country, which I do not have a problem with, but he doesn't speak my native language very well. I've seen him once now, and it was a disaster. I understood maybe half of what he was saying. My brain just short-circuited, and I felt like an idiot asking, sorry, could you repeat slower? And, could I get that in writing, the whole hour? We got nothing done, and it left me almost crying and having trouble speaking myself. ASD messing with my whole language processing. I went straight to reception and told the lady I would like to request a new doctor. She asked me why, and I told her that I couldn't understand the one that I'd been given. She checks my info and just huffs. She, in a very cold tone, says, I can understand him just fine. We don't let patients pick their doctors on racial bias. I am just shocked. I didn't even consider him being not white, as this is a very white country, I might add. I'm already really anxious, so I start crying and say that I just can't continue seeing him over and over. People are looking at us, I can't help it, and the lady is getting more annoyed with me. She says there's nothing she can do for me, and that it's a very a-hole-ish move of me to make such a scene, and that she won't be helping me anymore. She did not use those words, but I can't remember what she said exactly. I went to a bathroom to finish my crying, and then I called my mum. She agreed that I should get transferred to another doctor, but that it's my fault for not being clear on my reasons. I later got an email from my doctor that he's sad that I feel like I can't work with someone like him, but at this moment, I could not be transferred. He expressed that I had hurt him and that I was in the wrong. Now I'm wondering if I really am the asshole. I'm gonna go with no assholes here in this one. I know that this is a failure of communication, but I don't feel like it was a particularly malicious failure of communication by either party. Obviously, the reception woman couldn't understand OP and didn't get the reasons for why, so she, assumed that it was racism. OP themselves were too distraught and upset to give the reason for why that needed to be done, and I just feel bad for this doctor. The doctor has done nothing wrong in this situation. They've tried to do their job, they can't communicate effectively with OP, and then they see the reception lady thinking that this is racism. Obviously, if the doctor had this information at the time, they wouldn't take it as racism and they wouldn't take it as something to be upset by. I don't think you can call OP an asshole for not communicating that information. They obviously need help, and this is a mistake. We all make mistakes, so no assholes here. Now in the comments, Forgotten Troll says, "Not the asshole. For something like psychiatry, it's very important for doctors and clients to be able to communicate clearly. Doubly so in your case because of your condition. In the United States, the magic words for your requests are, I have a disability that makes it difficult for me to understand certain kinds of spoken language. I would like to request a reasonable accommodation for that disability." This right here. Don't let the receptionist shame you for being an advocate for yourself. With any condition, it's important to feel comfortable with your doctor and to be able to communicate comfortably. I can maybe understand why the receptionist might have jumped to the racial thing, but it wasn't her place to just call you out like that with no information. It wasn't racially motivated, and she just jumped straight to that and spurted it out in public. Again, please don't let others make you feel guilty or shamed for advocating for your own health. Blue Jay Fisher says, "No a-holes here. But you should have been clear when you asked to switch. It would absolutely have sounded to this woman like his race was a factor, and you did nothing to contradict that. A simple, I have APD and require a doctor who has as little an accent as possible would have made things clearer. It's not this lady's fault for assuming the most obvious thing." And OP replies, "After I'd calmed down, I thought about this, and my mum said this as well, but I can't help feeling like she was unreasonably mean to me. I was already visibly upset and almost crying when I went to the reception, and what I said, if translated more like word to word, was, I cannot understand my doctor's way of speaking. I don't think I was being rude, but I can't be sure as I'm not good at recognizing those kinds of tones, etc. I'll probably email my doctor to explain, since he's a specialist in my conditions and will maybe understand better." I think the biggest issue for you here is that you went to speak to the receptionist already upset. If all the receptionist had to do was insinuate that there was a racist motive for you to start crying and then be unable to have a conversation, you were too upset to be having that conversation at that time. Next time something like this happens, I'd really suggest taking the time to calm yourself and ground yourself before having to have a difficult conversation. I can't be mad at this receptionist. In this situation, 9 times out of 10, the person is just being racist. Complaining about accents goes up exponentially when the person isn't white, in case you don't know. That's a common thing. So I can't blame her for assuming that, especially considering you are unable to refute it. Emailing the doctor is a good idea. You'll be able to explain about your APD more clearly, and he should understand. Best of luck getting a new doctor. And OP replies, "I think I understand her POV better now. At the moment, I couldn't just think clearly, and I just wanted to have a new doctor so that I wouldn't need to experience this again. A lot went wrong with this on my side as well. I probably should have disclosed my autism so that she would have understood me better. I still felt really bad after the whole thing, as I didn't understand at all why things happened the way they did. Also, her suggestion of racial bias wasn't what made me cry. It was the denial of my request. It's hard to explain, but sometimes my emotions are a little too big for the situation. So her no became, you are stuck with this doctor, and every time I need new meds, etc., I will have to go through this again, and I can't do it, which was the last straw in that moment. I don't really know anything about how usual that kind of racism is. As I said, my country is extremely white, so it's probably bad. but something like that didn't really cross my mind before this. If it is usual for such a thing to happen, then I get her reaction a little better. Look, I understand. I know these things are very upsetting. I'd just imagine that this woman has had to field a lot of racist patience since this guy arrived. Probably an awful lot in a similar, "I just can't understand him, can't I see someone else?" vein. Also, I get it. I'm autistic too, and having to speak with doctors and psychiatrists, etc. is an absolute nightmare. I think it's just important that this doesn't become a stupid woman jumping at everything and calling everything racism thing, when it's pretty understandable that she inferred that, even if it wasn't the case. Hopefully you can get things sorted with this doctor. I wish you the best of luck. And now on to the update. I must start with thanking everyone for commenting. It made me feel so much better that there are people here that had the patience to explain what might have gone wrong and give advice, as I really had a hard time figuring the whole thing out. I emailed my doctor the next day and explained the situation. In short, I explained how my APD makes it hard for me to understand him and that I was really overwhelmed after my visit, so I couldn't explain myself properly. I also expressed that it made me feel awful that I had been put in that position and that his feelings had also been hurt as a result. Luckily, the doctor was really understanding in his reply and apologized on behalf of himself and the receptionist. He then went on to agree that my reasons are indeed valid and that we were not a good doctor-patient match. He said he will work everything out and apologized once more. I'm glad to say everything was resolved and I even received an apology card from the receptionist, and my new doctor is a very nice lady whom understands me and my problems extremely well. I decided not to escalate as everything worked out in the end, and all offending sides were sincerely sorry. Thanks to everyone who commented and helped me figure this out. Now in the comments, Bnomley says, "I'm so glad to hear that things worked out. I didn't see your original post when you first posted it, but reading it now, I could feel your pain coming through your words. It does sound like it was just a horrible misunderstanding, and I'm glad your new therapist is someone who understands you. Best of luck to you in the future." And OP replies, "Thank you. It really was just a huge misunderstanding all around, even worse than the usual misunderstandings that happen with me. Big hug. I have a communication learning disability, and I have issues with accents and process communications. I get in a lot of crap and get called racist a lot when I try to get transferred to someone else when I don't understand. Even when I pass the phone off to my husband to translate for me. Once I wanted to try Indian food, and I got a lady which I couldn't understand. I said, 'I'm sorry, I have a learning disability and I can't understand you. Is there someone else I can talk to?' Which is a common phrase that I say. She yelled at me and hung up. My husband called back and they wouldn't pick up. Huh. Am I the asshole for not wanting to sign away my rights? Look, I know it's my choice and I have a right to say no, but right now it feels like the rest of the world doesn't agree. Honestly, I, 26 male, didn't know this woman that well when we first met through a dating site. She was 35, and according to her profile was single, and she never told me she was married. We went out on a few dates for 4 months until she told me she wasn't interested anymore. I later found out it was because her husband was getting suspicious and she needed to cut her losses. But a few months after, she contacted me again and told me she was pregnant. It hadn't been that long since we slept together and she confessed everything. Her husband still didn't know yet because she wanted to find out who the father was first. We did the prenatal paternity test and confirmed her baby is also mine. She had to tell him after that, and it was a crap show. He wanted to speak to me and called me like crazy. She got him to leave me alone after telling him I never knew about her being married, and we were both lied to by her. They are apparently trying to work things out, but here's the thing. Her husband wants me completely out of the picture and is willing to adopt my baby if I terminate my parental rights. He doesn't want me in their lives at all, and this is his only condition, or he's divorcing her and taking their 2 kids. I don't know if he can actually do that, but she's begging me to do this or it'll completely break their family. Neither of them are considering that this is my child too, and I want to be in my child's life. I said I would not, and it's causing all these problems. She's called me several times, telling me how badly this is hurting her family, and her kids are hurt and confused because her husband's temporarily moved out until this condition is met. She feels guilty for doing this to them, but says she wants to fix her mistakes and make their marriage work if I could just do this. Plus to her, it's a sweet deal for me since I won't ever have to raise this baby or be responsible financially. I don't see it that way. I want to be a dad to my son, but it feels like what I want is hurting everyone else, like her kids. My close friends who know all this get that I want to do right by my kid, but feel I should walk away from this messy situation as it'll always be a part of my life if I choose to be involved. And it's possible if her husband is willing to adopt my son after birth, he'll have a good life. Nobody else in my life thinks me being in my son's life is a good idea, and I don't know if it really is such a bad thing. She's due in 2 months, and I don't know what to do. Am I the asshole? To be honest, morally and legally speaking, I'd say that you're in the right in this situation, and if you want to continue pursuing your child, you should. If it breaks the relationship with her, that's completely her fault. She's the one that chose to cheat, she chose to lie to both of you. That feels like it's the consequences of her own actions. If you do want your child in your life, you should have your child in your life. That's why you have rights. So I'm gonna go with not the a-hole here. Now in the comments, Succulent says, not the a-hole. Lawyer up, and I'd also suggest maybe asking r/relationships. You have a right to be a part of your child's life, and legal advice will help you go through your options. She lied to you, and in doing so, set herself up for a stuffed marriage, and she can't use that as an excuse to ostracize you out of your child's life. Maybe also r/legal? She's the one that broke up her family, not you. She needs to deal with her actions. And in all honesty, the husband may never forgive her, and take his resentment out on the baby. Start documentation of texts and voicemails, and never answer calls or texts. A lawyer could potentially show them harassing you, and possibly the start of parental alienation. Just Work already says, quote, she called me several times telling me how badly this is hurting her family. Excuse me, but she did this to herself, not the a-hole. Especially considering all she had to do to not have this blow up in her face was keep quiet. Wife to OP say, I want to break up, this isn't working out. And then wife to husband, honey, we're pregnant. And that's it. By seeking a paternity test, she literally doubled down on forging this situation, which she created by cheating in the first place. Honestly, from the little amount of info we have, she must be the type to make things more difficult on herself on purpose. This wasn't accidentally getting feelings for a coworker or whatever. This lady downloaded dating apps and sought out an affair. There are 8 million things she could have just not done to avoid this situation, and this is the path she chose anyway. Maybe the two men look wildly different, and so she had to confirm so it wouldn't be a surprise at the birth. That's the only logical reason I could think of. Either way, she's the a-hole, and she did this to herself. Might also be a bit hard explaining if things had been bad between them and did not have sex for a long time. And ForAlark90 says, not the a-hole, because as bad as all this is, you were only responsible for that child. You didn't lie, you weren't cheating, and you have rights. How will you feel if that marriage breaks up anyway, and the husband resents your son, and you can do nothing to help? This. You are not responsible for her marriage or her family. She is. You are responsible for your child, and only you can discern what's right in that regard. Not the a-hole. And now on to the update. So it's been a while since I posted this, and a lot has happened since then. And by a lot, I mean I finally became a dad. My son is healthy and beautiful, and is the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. One of the best things to ever happen to me, honestly, despite the drama. Thank you everyone who was helpful and encouraging in this situation. It felt good to know that even with what everyone else was saying, I had a right to say no to my ex's demands, and I'm not the one at fault for what happened. Several of you had suggested I talk to her about switching it around so that I could ask about getting full custody instead of being cut out if her husband had such a problem with me being around. That was a great idea, and I feel pretty stupid for not thinking about it myself. So here's what happened. I decided to try again and contact her husband because throughout this whole time, he was refusing to speak to me. But I just wanted to see if I could get through to him as a last resort. He agreed for us to talk, and I was shocked to find out he'd actually changed his mind about accepting the baby 2 months ago, before I made the post. Originally, he did have that condition that he'd only take her back and adopt my son if I wasn't in the picture, but decided he didn't want to raise another man's baby. So, she lied to me about him still having this condition, and this was just her attempt to try to fix everything, even though he was planning on going through with the divorce. He was pretty mad about what she was doing too, so he was kind of on my side about it. Did get a lawyer involved, and had another talk with her as well after he spoke to her, pretty much saying that he'd never take her back no matter what she did at this point. That got her to see trying to keep me out wasn't going to do anything. I brought up the full custody thing to see if that was something she wanted, and she agreed. To her, there was no point in having my son full-time with this whole divorce thing going on, and she doesn't even have her own place. He moved back into their house with the kids, and she ended up leaving. I'm going through with my attorney, and I was able to establish paternity after my son was born so that I'd be legally recognized as his father instead of her STBX. As of right now, he's with me full-time, but she still comes by to visit. Her life is a total mess right now with the divorce, and she's still pretty bitter towards me about it. It's not perfect, but I'm just so happy having my son in my life. Holding him for the first time, it made all the struggles worth it. It's definitely overwhelming doing it mostly on my own, but I don't regret how things played out. So thanks for the support and advice. It really helped make a difference when I couldn't see a way out of this without feeling like I was doing something wrong. Now in the comments, Joggle says, "Well done and congrats. I definitely wouldn't want my child being raised by that woman. She's bitter at you, even though it's entirely her fault. Is she paying you alimonies?" And OP replies, "She is paying child support, yes. I've learned not to take any blame on that isn't mine to carry, so that makes it easier when she tries to act like everything happening right now is my fault. You sound like you're going to be an amazing dad. Sorry, make that you are an amazing dad. Your little boy is lucky to have you permanently in his life and is going to thrive with you. Good luck for the future. Parenting is a wonderful privilege and is tough at times, but worth every tear and every sleepless night." And Gas Monkey says, "Congrats, Dad. Enjoy. Raising a child is one of life's joys. Sending you the best wishes from another dad who isn't with the mother." And OP replies, "Thanks. Hasn't been easy. My little man makes it worth it though. He's brought so much into my life." One small point, after well done obviously, is to try to stay on good enough terms with the husband if you can. Nothing big, but maybe Facebook friends. Your little guy will have questions and deserves to know his siblings when he grows, and I've found being open and having lines of communication open, even if not used, helps a lot. And Demetria says, quote, "Her life is a total mess right now with the divorce, and she's still pretty bitter towards me about it." I've read both your posts. It is shocking to me that she blames you for anything that happened to her. She was carrying on an affair for months, had lied to everyone in her life, put the emotional stability of her existing children in jeopardy, hurt her husband, and drove him to divorce her, and was made to pay for it with the level of hardship one should expect after behaving the way she did. She has no one to blame but herself. If I were you, there would be one rule when she visits: no discussion of the affair or her bitterness. Frankly, if she cannot treat you with respect and kindness, you should ask her to leave and come back when she can. You shouldn't have to put up with that negativity, especially given that you are now raising, on your own, the child you both created, because she made such a mess of her life that she can't participate as much as a parent should. And our next post is by user, B-Day Surprise Am I the A-Hole? Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé's friends that they can't organize a party for his birthday because I already have plans? So my fiancé, 28 male, and I, 27 female, have been together for 6 years. We're in the middle of planning our wedding, but that's besides the point, lol. Anyways, he's the love of my life and my best mate in the world, and I want him to be happy. So we live in a city that's close to some beautiful hills. Sometimes we go for drives in those hills. There is one little town that my fiancé loves, even though he has never actually stayed there. It's his birthday next Friday, so I decided to take him on a mini holiday to that town. I found a cute hotel and researched and organized some activities that I know he'll love. We'll stay from Friday to Monday. I've talked to his boss and he agreed to let my fiancé take 2 days off, but won't say anything so as to keep it a surprise. So yesterday, one of his friends messaged me and told me about a party they've been organizing for my fiancé, and asked me to guide him to it without giving it away. The party was supposed to be on a Friday night, and I told them that we'll be out of town Friday night, but I'd help them to throw it on Thursday. His friends then started blowing up my phone, telling me that it's uncool to take him away on his birthday without prior warning or discussing it with him, and that he'd probably rather spend his birthday having a beer with the boys instead of doing boring couple crap. After some back and forth, I told him to get effed, and that they should have consulted with me and not the other way around. They said that they're going to tell my fiancé about both of our plans so that he can decide what he wants to do. I asked them not to, as I went to great lengths to keep it a surprise, but they said that it's only fair and I should have remembered that they might want to do something and that most of them have known him for longer than I do. I feel like I shouldn't have to ask for permission to take my fiancé on a trip on his birthday, but maybe it's a faux pas. No, these guys just sound like dickheads trying to force their own way, force their party to the forefront of this. Thursday is a reasonable day to have beers with the boys real quick. I understand there's work the next day, but for a lot of people, Thursday isn't too much different to a Friday night out. With the way people carry on these days, that's for sure. They don't sound like they have too much respect for your relationship if they're willing to blackmail you to just ruin everything. That's a dick move by all of them, so I'm gonna say not the a-hole for this one, but I would tread carefully. Now in the comments, Deadly House Frau says, not the a-hole. Talk to your fiancé and tell him generally that you have planned a surprise for him. Tell him his friends planned something without looping you in and won't be flexible about doing it one day early. Then tell him that they have threatened to spoil your surprise and ask him to specifically tell them not to do that. At this point, I definitely think that this is the best idea. Yeah, this is definitely the way to go, OP, not the a-hole. Seriously, especially since they planned this birthday party to be one that clearly doesn't really even include OP, as she was supposed to just guide him to the gathering. Who the hell has the balls to do this for someone's birthday without clearing with their fiancé first? Totally not the a-hole. And after 6 years, I think he likes the couples junk. And I'm appalled they didn't include OP at all in the planning, or think that she may have something going. Not the a-hole. Generic name 907 says not the a-hole. It's ridiculous of them to expect you to ask them before you make plans for your fiancé's birthday, and you are very correct. They should have consulted you prior to planning a party. Remember to loop his friends in on the wedding plans too. You want to make sure the date works for all of them and you have food they like. You may want to ask them if it's okay if you even invite your family. They'll probably make it too much about you though. Also, don't forget to check in with them before you have any kids. Gotta make sure it fits in with their lives. Seriously though, who the hell do these guys think they are? You are this person's future. Why didn't they ask you before they started making plans for his birthday? Obviously not the a-hole here. And Framolaski says not the a-hole. What kind of friends organize a surprise party for a friend without the partner? And you are his fiancé, not just a girl he dates for a while. And for the people who say that OP should have checked with the fiancé, it's a surprise, and the friends are really the a-holes for the crappy comments and that they will snitch. And edit, also, if they really ruin the surprise and let OP's fiancé decide, stay with the boys and his fiancé will be disappointed, or he chooses OP, the woman he wants to marry by the way, and his boys will throw a tantrum. This would really ruin his birthday because there is no such thing like a good solution. Happy birthday, man! You can decide which people you'll disappoint today. And now on to the update. So some of you asked for an update, so I shall deliver. First things first, the surprise wasn't ruined. We got to go and my fiancé loved it. I followed your advice and told him that I had something planned that clashed with the plans his mates made, and they are now threatening to ruin the surprise. I offered to tell him what I had planned, but he shut that down pretty quickly. He then called one of the boys and asked them what the fuck was wrong with them to pull this stunt, and that they should know by now that our birthday surprises are a very important part of our relationship and something we look forward to the whole year. After a rather lengthy talk with his mates, it turned out that the boys wanted one last big birthday piss-up before he got married, as they all felt like he was drifting away from them and that his priorities shifted. The fiancé then told them that it's normal for priorities to shift when you're in a long-term relationship, and he made it known that he was very disappointed with the boys' behavior towards me and that they needed to apologize. Apart from that, we had a wonderful weekend. He loved it and even ordered a blanket with his favorite photos of the trip on it. My fiancé didn't go to the boys' night though last week, as no one has apologized to me. I guess that showed them that he was serious, and most of them called or messaged me afterwards with an apology, except for one bloke. Everyone apart from him will be coming to ours for a barbecue next week, and we're both hoping to be able to move past this rather unpleasant experience. That's all, guys. Take care. Now in the comments, Bradicalman says, "Love this update. Good for your fiancé for putting you before the guys. Would have been seriously concerned about this if he didn't, but late cake day to your fiancé and hope the barbecue goes well. Great to see your fiancé backed you up. He set a great precedent for your future life together. Congratulations, and I'm happy it all worked out. He's a good 'un." I still can't get over the fact that you offered to help them reschedule, but they were so hyper-focused on the fact that you made plans on his actual birthday. You handled all this situation well, and I'm glad your husband has his priorities straight. I'd likely want a birthday surprise from my partner on my birthday over my friends if I had to pick one. And that's because my partner knows me best and knows what would make me super excited. It's not that my friends don't, but the love of my life going through such effort hits different. And what's this? Communication? I love it. You both handled that really well, and I love the way he stood up to his friends. Which one refused to apologize? Was it the one who threatens to ruin your surprise? It's a shame his friends had to be such jerks about the way they were planning the guys' night. If they had just communicated and cooperated with you, it could have happened. Instead, they decide to mark their territory by turning it into a pissing contest, and they lost. Am I the asshole for pouring my husband's sweet tea down the drain and marching out? So I lost my part-time job due to the pandemic, and I've basically become a little housewife. I'm fine with that, as that's always been my role in the relationship anyways. It's just less hard to keep up with now. I'm also in school for nursing, but obviously I'm doing that from home. My husband works full-time and works hard. His commute to work is very long, over an hour each way. We go running together every day, and because I know it's a lot of stress for him, we meet 20 minutes away from our home so he doesn't have to come home and drive back out. He calls me when he's 20 minutes away, and I leave. Today, I was 7 minutes late as I had to turn off all the lights and get myself together before leaving the house. When I got there, he copped a major attitude with me for being late. Refused to even speak to me, for being 7 minutes late. I tried to explain that I had to put my shoes on and turn off the lights, but he wouldn't talk to me. The run was very awkward, and when we got home, he said that he felt he had every right to be angry and stomped off upstairs. I've had a lot of pent-up feelings about the fact that he's always expected me to be at his beck and call. It's like he thinks the whole world revolves around his time schedule because I lost my job. Anytime he's hungry, thirsty, he yells my name. He doesn't even serve his own plates anymore. It's like he thinks I just sit in the dark with my hands folded, waiting for him to call. At this point, I knew he was being ridiculous, and I was just so upset that I did something that may make me an a-hole. When he came downstairs, I told him that he could make his own dinner, his own lunch tomorrow for work, and I looked him straight in the eye as I poured the pitcher of sweet tea I make him every week down the drain. And I said, "You can make your own effing sweet tea too, you ungrateful brat." And I walked out and drove to my mum's house. So, am I the a-hole for that overreaction? I was just so annoyed. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole because I cursed and poured my husband's sweet tea down the drain before marching out during a fight. It was a major overreaction to him overreacting to something else. In all fairness, this is a bit of a stretch from just pouring the sweet tea down the drain. This is an expected argument from him being a baby. Also, as the first comment points out, oh my god, the age difference between you guys is 31 and 19 years old. I feel like outside of horrendous things, there's nothing much you can do in this situation in the realm of normal that makes you an asshole here. It feels like he's taking advantage of you and expects you to be like a sex robot, housewife thing. You are absolutely not the asshole, but I would be very careful with this man's and see what his intentions are and consider your future with someone like this. Now in the comments, Podcast of the Dragon says, "Not the asshole. I felt like the everyone sucks here crowd had a point until I saw that he's 31 and you're 19, and he specifically wanted a housewife. Look, age gap relationships can work out fine and be perfectly healthy, provided the older partner treads with care. He has an obligation to be especially mindful, patient, kind, and to make your needs and comforts the focus of the relationship. He should be letting you guide everything, following your lead, and not concerning himself with what he wants. Otherwise, he's just an exploitative creep." No. 19 and 31 is never gonna be okay. That means at 30, he went out and found a girl that was legal by the skin of her teeth and married her as fast as he could. That is so deeply not okay. I mean, clearly this dude was looking for a hot young bangmaid, but I don't see any scenario where a 30-year-old can go after an 18-year-old without being a creep. Typically when people do creepy shit like that, it's because they can't get a person in their own age group, because there's something troubling about them. It sounds like this dude has major low self-esteem and insecurity issues. I am a year younger than this guy. I would run for the hills once I saw a red flag that intense. Same with the expecting a subservient housewife. There's a quote I like to think about when I hear about men like him. Men who date girls who are 18 are likely employers who pay minimum wage. If they could legally go lower, they would. Okay, so there's a lot here. Girl, you are 19. You and this man are not equals. He thinks of you as more of a maid than as a partner, and that's not going to change. You've got a whole life to live, and you can't limit yourself to serving an older man who doesn't care about you forever. Leave, find a job, even a crappy one for now. Find local food pantries. If you can't afford a cheap place right now, try to stay with your friends. You are worth so much more than this. There's nothing wrong with being a housewife, but only in a fair partnership, which this is clearly not. Go live your life, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole, but I do have questions. What happens if you leave the lights on? And OP replies, he gets annoyed at me for wasting money and very passive-aggressively shows me how to turn off light switches. I just try to avoid the headache beforehand. Yup, as I thought. You don't do it for yourself, you do it to avoid conflict. He's controlling you. He doesn't yell at me or anything. He's just really annoying with it and treats me like a child and goes, "Do you see this switch? You flip it off so the light turns off so we save money." And then demonstrates it over and over. It just gets under my skin. This is undeniably abusive behavior. If you think that abuse necessarily involves yelling or physical force, you are incorrect. His abuse is more subtle than that, and because it is subtle, it's easier for you to normalize it, to perceive the abuses within the spectrum of normal behavior and thereby accept it. He is shaming you and using that shame to control you. Emotional abuse is often more insidious than physical abuse precisely because it doesn't immediately register as abuse, and so people put up with it. And if you continue to accept it and normalize it, the abuse will only get worse over time. It will not get better. It will not stay the same. It will get worse. It always does. Alright, and now back up to the post itself, there is an update. I deleted my edits because I wanted to do an update, as I see a lot of kind, wonderful people so concerned about my well-being. I wanted to thank each and every one of you for being so supportive. I don't have any friends anymore, and all the messages and comments have made me feel like I have a support group. For now, I'm staying at my parents' indefinitely. My mum is helping me to write a list of all the reasons that I'd want to stay, and all the reasons I'd like to leave. I have always been a very independent person, and I think I've been lying to myself about my situation for a long time. I called him to tell him I wouldn't be coming home, and he didn't really seem to care much, which did hurt a lot. Either way, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to get my degree. For those of you concerned about kids, don't worry. I have an IUD. And again, thank you all so much. Your love and support means more than I can express. And what would you know, there is another update. So it's been a few days since my original post. Everyone was so kind, helpful, and supportive. I received so many messages, and I want to thank each one of you for them. They meant more to me than you know. Well, I've left my husband, and it really wasn't over this one incident, but really a build-up of many. Before I even made the post, I wasn't completely blind to what he had been doing in terms of control. As weird as it seems, sometimes I just forget I'm an adult, and I don't have to just yes sir and listen to any man that's older than me. I'm an adult now. I make my own rules. I feel sick saying this, but I realize I had been viewing him as a parental figure and not a partner. It kind of makes my stomach twist to even type that, but that's what it is. I don't even really want to analyze it right now though, it's too gross. I'm honestly going through a really tough grieving time right now. I feel like such a failure. What's worse is that he does not care in the least. When I called him to tell him I was leaving, he said, "Okay, let me know when you want to grab your stuff. We can have you moved out ASAP," and that was it. That was all he said before he hung up the phone. I'm really hurting. I loved him so much, and I think part of me just wanted to see if he was willing to fight for me and apologize. He was not, so that's that. But although I'm hurting, I feel free. My mum has welcomed me back, and she's so happy that I'm divorcing him. I got together with my friend who he wouldn't let me see. I watched TV shows he told me were too childish, and I've been wearing ugly sweatpants and oversized t-shirts that he always said made me look like a man. So thank you, all of you. I got a wake-up call I desperately needed. I don't even want to be a housewife. I never wanted that for me. No hate on anyone who does. Honestly, guys, it was hard and lonely work. I'm going to get my RN and then move on to my master's. You've all encouraged me in the best way possible. Now in the comments, Hanya Saad says, "This thing went from I poured sweet tea down the drain to I left my husband before I had a chance to read the original post." And Blair Boo says, "Good for you. Please get legal advice now before you move your stuff and return the key, especially if the house is marital property. I'm not a lawyer, not sure if it matters, but I would want to check with a lawyer first for that very reason. Don't let him get out of this marriage with more than his share just because it's easier now. You may regret it later, and you deserve to start this new phase of your life with your head held high. This, so much this, your soon-to-be ex has proven that he does not have your best interests at heart. Depending on your jurisdiction, you may have rights that he would really, really, really prefer that you don't exercise. He will almost certainly lie to you about them. I can't suggest strongly enough that you speak to a family law attorney who is licensed in your area before you leave the family home. Absolutely. Expert legal advice is absolutely essential. The OP is at risk of being manipulated into feeling that they shouldn't be entitled to anything, especially if they weren't working. if this controlling husband tries to argue his wage is his money. But the law usually recognizes and places a very high value on non-financial contributions, such as being a housewife. A court is very likely to require a much older partner with a very much younger partner, who has no job and is still in school, to support that partner with some form of spousal support. Splitting marital assets will also have to be worked through, and in some countries the OP would be likely to receive a larger share due to her need to establish herself. And this isn't unfair on the husband. It's the risk the husband took by marrying someone who was barely an adult. OP should see a good family lawyer immediately. 100% agreed. Had she not gotten married and spent all her time cooking and cleaning, she could have been going to school or working and getting promoted. Spousal support exists exactly for this reason. She needs to be compensated for her contributions to the household. And OP replies, he's very much about appearances, so most likely the divorce will be quiet. I don't think he'd try to pull any spiteful moves, especially since he loves his reputation. His disinterest is a tactic to try to get you to come crawling back. In predatory circles, this is called dread game. It's manipulative and abusive. He's trying to make you think you need him more than he needs you, and by extension, make you think that you can't do better, so it's your duty to keep him, not the other way around. Do not fall for it. You deserve so much more than this, and his behavior is not normal or healthy. When dread game doesn't work, the next step is love bombing. At some point, weeks or months from now, he's going to magically have a change of heart. I thought I didn't need you, but now I see I can't live without you. I didn't appreciate you, and I see that now. I'm so sorry, baby. I promise I'll do better. After his emotional withdrawal from you, the love bomb is intended to overwhelm you with emotion and make you think that maybe he really has changed. He won't. He's not going to change. He's 31 years old and he knows exactly what he's doing. If you go back to him, then he'll know he can do whatever he wants to you and you won't leave. And when these tactics don't work, he'll see it as an insult to his ego, and he's going to try to punish you for it. He's going to make this divorce ugly and do everything he can to cast you as the psycho so he can preserve his own reputation. He doesn't want to be seen as the instigator of a failed marriage. He wants to be the upstanding and honorable victim of a crazy ex-wife. Hire a lawyer now and document everything you can. Save every text message, and try to only communicate by text or email. Our next post is by user Backyard Pond, titled, Am I the asshole for not letting my kids wear pajamas around the house? So I'm a dad, 43, to 3 kids, 15 female, 10 female, and 8 male. I love them more than anything and want to resolve this problem ASAP, as I hate fighting with them. I like to think that my wife and I have been good parents thus far. We are not extremely strict or helicopter parents. We do not limit screen time for my daughters. They all get a weekly allowance and are asked to do very minimal chores, cleaning their shared bathroom, washing their dishes, etc. The kids have had no issues with the way the household runs until now. Since my eldest was born, my wife and I have enforced a no pajama policy around the house. We consider it the same as taking off your shoes when you come inside. Pajamas are worn for sleeping in their bedrooms at night. They aren't allowed to wear them down into shared spaces like the living room, kitchen, etc., or during times of the day when they're up and active. Essentially, anytime they aren't sleeping. This is to keep everyone from feeling lazy or like they have nothing to do, and also keeps everyone looking presentable and clean. We've been enforcing this rule a bit more ever since they switched to online school, as we don't want them falling asleep or becoming distracted during and in between class. The only exception is pajama night, once a week, where we all wear pajamas and play board games or watch a movie together. My wife and I follow the same rule for the sake of fairness. A few days ago, my eldest came down for breakfast in her pajamas. I asked her to go back upstairs and change before joining us, and told her that we would wait for her before we started eating. She refused, so I told her that she could either change out of her pajamas or go back to bed, as pajamas are for sleeping only. It ended in an argument between her, my wife, and I. She said the rule is unfair and ridiculous, and that we aren't allowed to control what she wears. She also claimed that she was uncomfortable in everything else because it was all too formal for breakfast. I told her I don't care what she changes into, so long as they aren't pajamas. She could wear sweatpants if she'd like, but the expectation we set in our house is that pajamas are for sleeping only. I also pointed out that we don't control what she wears out of the house. No pajamas, obviously, and within reason as they're still young. She stormed off into her room and she won't speak to me or my wife. I'm wondering if I or we are the assholes in this situation, as we are, to some degree, policing what our children wear around the house. But I also feel that it isn't a huge demand to make, especially since my wife and I also follow it, and generally don't ask much else of the kids. Edit. The rule does not apply when the kids go to their friends' houses, and we're more relaxed about it when they bring friends over to our house, though the rule isn't completely dropped. Edit 2. Yes, holidays are also an exception, including birthdays and days where one of the kids has something special to celebrate, like an award, a good grade, etc. Thank you to the user who asked and reminded me. And also, I consider pajamas to be whatever you slept in. The kids are expected to change out of whatever they slept in, but if that means changing into lounge and leisure wear, or even a clean pair of pajamas, that's fine. Oh my god, it's so true that rule of having so many edits after the post just digs yourself deeper into that hole. You really are policing what the kids are wearing. That's such an arbitrary rule. I consider pajamas to be whatever you slept in. Are you seriously monitoring what every one of your kids are wearing every day of the week, just to make sure they don't wake up and come to breakfast wearing that? Is that really the world that you live in? Because you say, oh, I don't care all that much, I just want to make sure you're presentable. From my point of view, it looks like you care a lot, and that this isn't just a small deal, this is quite a big deal to you. It feels like you just like power for power's sake and having power over your kids to tell them, no, god damn it, you go change those clothes right now because I told you to. Very weird parenting strategy, that one. I'm gonna go with you're the asshole. Now in the comments, Shantae420 says, you're the a-hole. It's a pandemic and she wants to eat breakfast in her PJs. There is literally nothing wrong with that. How about next time, instead of being a totalitarian parent, you say, okay, I understand, but after breakfast you need to change. Not everyone wants to get fully dressed the minute they wake up, my god. This. I always get fully dressed as soon as I wake up, and people tell me that I'm insane. Pretty sure the general consensus is that almost nobody wants to do this. Yeah, I'm with you. I've stayed all day in my pajamas once since the pandemic started, but I'm for sure in the minority, according to anyone I've spoken to. Info. How do PJs promote laziness and not looking presentable, but sweatpants don't? That's what makes your rule seem arbitrary. Weird hill to die on during a pandemic. Especially since she just wanted to eat breakfast. I get not hanging around in PJs for too long, but this is overly strict. Also, his edit states that PJs are okay as long as they're clean new PJs and not the ones they slept in. So it isn't even the aesthetics of wearing PJs. Super weird. I really don't understand this guy at all. Be consistent at least. PJs are only for sleeping unless they are new clean ones. Make up your mind, OP. And the nudie booby says, gentle you're the a-hole. I think this is a ridiculous rule, honestly, and that you're being super controlling of your kids. I don't think this makes you a horrible person or parent, but I think your kids have every right to question rules for which there's little and rather stupid reasoning. If they were wearing PJs all day every day, sure, but as a general rule, nah. Even if they were just wearing PJs all day, I still fail to see the harm in that. Some people say with the pandemic and being gone all the time, still following a routine and getting dressed in the morning helps mental health and makes you feel like you're still being productive and doing something. I've heard of a lot of elementary school parents doing this with their kids to keep a sense of normalcy. I have severe depression, and I was at a point where I'd leave the house maybe once a week and shower once or twice. The only person I'd see is my mom. So I don't care what I look or smell like. One of the first steps every psychiatrist and therapist I saw was to try to shower every day, brush my teeth, go outside, do something to feel productive. I've slipped backwards a lot since the pandemic, but once I started showering every day, I started getting better. Now I have trouble again because when I don't leave the house, I don't shower or brush my teeth. But luckily, that's only about 2 days a week now. Now, if you're a normal person and you stop doing these basic things because you have nowhere to go or anyone to see, you could slip where I am real quick. And now on to the update. So my daughter and I got back from the doctor a few hours ago, so I thought I'd update everyone, as my last post got a pretty large response. Now, I'm a good dad, and that's something I'm sure of. I love my kids, I try very hard to be a good parent, and I know I've done that. A few people commented on my post saying that I was ruining my kids' lives, etc., which is not true in the slightest. That being said, I was somewhat wrong about the pajamas. As some people mentioned, changing out of pajamas acts as a reset for them and helps them acknowledge that they are starting their day. This is why my wife and I started the rule in the first place, but obviously things change over time. Shortly after getting my A-hole title, I went to talk things out with my daughter, intending on figuring out a way to change the pajama policy so that we were all happy with it. I re-explained the reasoning behind the rule, shifting mindsets in the morning, and she ended up crying and told me that changing her mindset didn't matter because she can't stop falling asleep anyway. I asked her what she meant, and she explained that she'd been falling asleep multiple times a day, even when she's changed out of her pajamas. My wife is close friends with a somnologist, so we set up an appointment and he spoke with my daughter. He recommended that she go for a polysomnogram and MSLT sleep tests, and it turns out she has narcolepsy. We are currently discussing treatment options with our doctors to see how we can help her, but it's a big relief for her to know that there's a reason behind why she's been struggling with sleep. As for the pajamas, we sat down as a family and discussed it together. We all decided we wanted to keep the rule but reworked it so the kids can eat their breakfast in their pajamas as long as they're changed and starting online school on time. Also, a lot of people asked why my wife and I don't limit my kids' screen time. We limit my son's as he's a bit younger, but my daughters are extremely good at limiting their own. They are both bookworms and understand that too much screen time is harmful, so they don't spend a lot of time on their devices anyway. So my wife and I have never felt the need to step in. Now in the comments, a bunch of zeros and ones says, an amazing amount of problems can just disappear when people are willing to actually just sit down and talk about them. I also want to applaud OP for not reacting like it's because you're lazy and you don't do anything when the daughter told him about falling asleep all the time. I agree. I've always had issues with tidiness, organization, and mess. I begged my family to listen to me when I literally couldn't tidy up like everyone else, and even said to my dad several times, it's like my brain doesn't see it until someone points it out to me. And I tried so many times to explain to my parents how hard I found it. I was a very bright child, all top sets, academics came easy to me, I was well behaved in school and showed multiple times I was a hard worker. But my parents simply labeled me as lazy, careless, and disobedient. It wasn't until I moved in with my current partner, who noticed my struggles but is endlessly supportive and understanding, until we realized I wasn't entirely neurotypical. It turns out, I'm not lazy or careless, I have ADHD. I can't help but wonder how my life and relationships would have turned out had my parents listened to me in the same way that OP listened to his daughter. And the Secret Rebel comments, that sounds like a great compromise. I hope your daughter feels better now she understands she has a medical condition affecting her sleep. Agreed. It can be such a relief to realize why something is happening to you, but now for the relief from that. My little sister has narcolepsy and has managed it well with Xyrem, but everyone's path is different. The Narcolepsy Network is also a great resource. Am I the asshole for giving my friend the wrong answers in an examination resulting in her failing? Throwaway because my main has a lot of personal info, And even though I don't care if my friend sees this, I don't want some person who thinks I'm the a-hole, which I may be, to dox me or something. English is not my first language, so I apologize if I make any grammatical or spelling errors. So my friend Lucy, 18 female, and I, 17 female, have known each other since middle school. From a young age, Lucy has developed a habit of asking me for answers on test papers or assignments, and I always gave them to her, but also made her understand the questions and answers. In junior year, I told Lucy that I would no longer help her cheat, since now our grades had an actual impact and consequence, but she always managed to convince me to help her, especially since we have been friends for so long. This is one of the reasons why I may be the a-hole, by the way, since I helped her kind of develop this habit of depending on me. She would always leave a few questions, and this basically ensured that the teacher wouldn't find out she was cheating, because at the end of the examination, our marks would be different, so the teacher wouldn't have any reason to doubt us. I get A's, and she writes enough to get B's. This is our last year in school, and at the start of this semester, I told her that this time I would definitely not help her. I told her that enough was enough, and that if she got into a good college with the marks she got by cheating, that would not be fair to someone who worked hard. She said she understood, and that was that, and in the first 2 major examinations she got C's, and I guess her parents were not happy. Lucy then begged me to help her again, and would constantly badger me every day by spamming my socials, or when we meet up with friends. I told her I no longer wanted to talk to her, but she would just not let things go, and even threatened to reveal some secrets that I had trusted her with when we were younger. So 2 weeks ago, when we had an examination and she asked me for answers, I gave her the wrong ones. She left some, and somehow got marks for that, but her overall grade was F. We got the results yesterday, and until that moment I thought I was justified in doing what I did to get her to stop harassing me. But when she got the result, she started sobbing, like full-on crying, and I felt so guilty. She later called me a lot of names and told me I crushed her dreams, and I feel so bad. But I know I did what I did so that she would stop with the cheating, so I'm confused. Am I the asshole? I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one. I feel like, yeah, your actions screwed her over here, but it's the actions that a lot of people would do to people trying to cheat off of them. Maybe not particularly the nicest thing in the world to do, and continually brought up is that notion of, yeah, you might be right, but you're still an asshole. I don't believe that's the case in this situation here personally. I get that other people would think that, and they're entitled to those opinions, and they're entitled to call me wrong for that. But her continuing to cheat for so long is doing her no favors, and once she gets to university, is she just gonna continue to try and find other ways to cheat? Is she not just gonna step up to the plate and learn and retain information like she's supposed to do to get the marks she wants? This feels like a completely her problem, and this is her fault. So for that reason, I'm going not the a-hole. Now in the comments, No Jellyfish 1208 says, everyone sucks here, but her more than you. Cheating is wrong, and you shouldn't have helped her earlier. I get that everyone sucks here, but I think OP is a justified a-hole. The correct judgment is not the a-hole. OP isn't the a-hole for giving the wrong answers. That's honestly what she should have done from the beginning. OP's right. She's going to take someone's spot at their dream college on false pretenses, and it's because OP helped her for so long. That's what makes OP an a-hole. Giving her the wrong answers is absolutely an asshole move. OP knew she was likely to use them. She should have simply refused to help and let the friend stand on her own 2 feet on whether she knew the material or not. Chances are she has terrible self-esteem at this stage, and any doubts she had about the answers OP provided, she probably thought she'd misunderstood the material. OK Mode 2038 says, everyone sucks here. She sucks for cheating, and you suck for enabling her, and then purposefully giving her the wrong answers. Sweetie, she's not your friend. The fact that she couldn't accept the bill and continued to badger shows this. She's using you to continue getting decent grades. This is a toxic relationship. Rather than telling her no and even engaging with her on the matter, cut ties. Do not respond. Block her number if needed, but there's nothing good here, and you've both acted poorly. And Analyst19 says, not the a-hole. Universities and high schools have honor codes, and providing answers, even deliberately false answers, will result in severe consequences for all parties. If Lucy asks you to help her cheat in the future, say no and report the interaction to your teacher. And OP replies, oh, if I did that last thing, i.e. telling the teacher, I would be destroyed lol, so I can't do that. But I will say no. Thanks for the comment. And Welding Guy replies, to be honest, I think you really aren't taking this very seriously. You came here with a guilty conscience, mainly because what you did was beyond being an a-hole. All these years you ruined this poor girl's life by helping her cheat, instead of putting your foot down and following through on no. You keep saying that she would never let the secrets out, and you plan on letting the secrets out to counteract just in case, but that might as well have its own set of consequences. You really haven't thought through this, as once the secrets of you helping her cheat get out, you may end up endangering your future in a university. And Team Samson replies to that, why did this comment get upvotes? Ruined her life by letting her cheat? They didn't ruin her life. Lucy ruined her own life. OP didn't force her to cheat. He didn't even offer the answers. She begged for them. And OP says, yeah, you're right. Never doing anything like this ever again. The secret is just embarrassing though, not like illegal. I'm planning on apologizing since I'm an asshole as well, and maybe try and get her to let me help her study. I'm not worried about people finding out though. My school only suspends the one asking for answers. Even in the rare chance that she tries to report me, I can just say that she made up a fake story because I refused to give her the answers, and now she has an F. Our next post is by user OpenHeart826, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my mum she's just as bad as the people who leave fake tips? So this happened yesterday, and my mum is saying I'm an asshole because I didn't mind my own business. I don't think I'm in the wrong, but maybe I am. So yesterday, my mum and I went out to a restaurant to get some dinner. We haven't been out to eat since pre-pandemic, so this was a treat for us. We got there before the dinner rush, so about 10 minutes after we were sat and ordered, tons of people started turning up. One group was a family of 7. Parents, a teen girl, a preteen boy, 2 toddlers, and a baby boy. They'd taken up 2 tables to the left of us and started up instantly with a ruckus. Our waitress was swamped. Her whole section got filled in the span of 5 minutes, so I don't blame her for being stretched thin. But the dad next to us was audibly complaining about the crap-tier service. I heard him say, I know how to get her attention, before we saw him pull out what I thought was a $20 bill. But then I saw the other side of it, and it was white with some text. I instantly knew what it was and was appalled. I watched him fold the 20 in half and tuck it under the ketchup. The waitress saw it too, and brightened, and was extra nice to them. I was disgusted because I was a server for 10 plus years, so I had people pull that on me, and it is devastating to be paid pennies to think, oh, I'm getting a good tip, only to have the rug yanked out from under you with one of those fake money Bible verse pamphlets. I told my mom I was going to tell the waitress, but she said for me to mind my own business. I told her what they were doing was crappy, and despite her hushing, I waved the waitress over when my drink got low and gestured for her to lean in a bit before whispering the 20 the table had out was fake. It was just one of those pamphlets disguised as money. She looked stunned, but thanked me. Afterwards, it was pretty obvious that that table was getting the least amount of attention she could get away with giving them. She didn't ignore them, but they were definitely her absolute last priority. I guess they didn't like that and left ASAP, leaving the fake 20 there. And yeah, I saw her pick it up, check it, and then toss it. I felt really bad for her, as she was clearly busting her ass, so I left her a really good tip, 3 times the amount I usually leave. On the ride home, my mum and I got into an argument. She was mad at me for being meddlesome in things that didn't concern me, but I think I did the right thing. I'd have wanted someone to tell me if I'd been in her shoes. I got mad and snapped that she is just as bad as the dick who thought leaving a Bible verse was an adequate payment. She yelled for me to not raise my voice at her, but I said I wouldn't have if she'd been a decent person. But then my brother agreed with her, so now I'm at a loss. Was I the a-hole for snapping at my mum? Am I the a-hole? I mean, snapping at your mum may be a little bit out of line in that case, but I think you snapped for the right reason in this case. You're standing up for yourself, and you're standing up for this server who's been done so dirty. Seems in this situation, you have empathy, and your mum lacks empathy for this person that was going to be screwed over by this stupid family. I feel like you've done the right thing in this situation. Snapping at her, maybe, but I don't see a problem with that. I'm going to go with not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Muffy Wright says, not the a-hole, and bless you for having that poor woman's back. I've never worked for tips, but I know what it feels like to be promised an award, like a horseback ride for cleaning my room to my mum's satisfaction and to get trash in return. A coin-op horsey machine in front of Kmart. Bait and switch sucks. And OP replies, I'm sorry your horsey dreams were dashed. AmITheA 13 says, quote, she yelled at me to not raise my voice. Oh, the irony. Not the a-hole, you did a good thing. But even if your mother disagrees, why is she meddling in things, as in your actions, that don't concern her? And OP replies, she said it did concern her because she was there with me and was embarrassed. Yeah, but how was she embarrassed? From your description, you were very discreet, unlike the other person. Leaving fake money for someone providing service for you is an embarrassment to society. Not the a-hole. They didn't deserve extra effort from the server in exchange for a lie. I honestly hadn't even heard of this before. It's so trashy. I can't believe there are people who would act this petty and cheap without embarrassment. The main reason I hated the after-church crowds on Sundays when I worked at a tipping establishment was this. It's disgusting, and they genuinely sit there and are smug about telling the truth to someone working on a Sunday. How could they? No use pointing out they're using that labor on a Sunday. And Pamphlet Hamlet 21 says, as a former server and just a decent human, thank you. You did the right thing. Not the a-hole at all. The world needs people like you. Not meddlesome, but doing the right thing. They deserved it for having that kind of audacity. And OP replies, if the guy was going to spend money on printing off those stupid pamphlets, then why not just not do that, and instead use the money to tip his waitstaff? Also, it's possible to do both if that's what you feel like. Not saying anyone should because not everyone is Christian, but if they wanted so badly to give out Bible verses, they could leave the paper and leave money. Yes. What's wrong with a proper tip and an honest pamphlet that says, hey, in case you're interested in trying out our community, services are at these times. Everyone's welcome, and also there's a coffee morning on X date, a music concert on Y, and a summer fete next month. No? How about just no? Look, I'm all for friendly religious discussion, but my mum worked retail and had people preach at her all the time. One guy saw her pentagram necklace slip out of her shirt and proceeded to yell at her to repent in the name of Jesus Christ in front of a whole line. Our next post is by user Not Really a Double Date, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my friend I don't want to be her bridesmaid anymore? Throwaway. My friend Mary and I have known each other since we were children. We've grown apart over the past few years, but she still considers me important enough to make me a bridesmaid. Her wedding is set to be in 3 weeks. One reason why I sort of distanced myself from her was because of her treatment of my relationship. My boyfriend Jack and I have been together for 3.5 years. He's a wonderful person, and there is no doubt in my mind that this is the man I want to marry. But Mary is under the impression that Jack is too good for me. Jack comes from a very wealthy background. His parents are certainly very wealthy. He was practically guaranteed a lavish life from the moment that he left the womb. This is in stark contrast to my childhood. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, often wondering where my next meal was or how I was going to help pay the bills at a young age, etc. I'm grateful and proud for where I am today. Jack is considered to be conventionally attractive, always looking like he should be on some magazine or billboard somewhere. Jack's good looks and background have led Mary to believe that Jack deserves better than me, as according to her, there's no way I could have pulled someone so attractive and rich. It's pretty disheartening to hear those things constantly, and it does kind of take a toll on you, and the friendship. Whenever Jack is around, she's quite polite and respectful, never once making those comments. Eventually, the comments stopped. Mary invited me for lunch with her fiancé and his friend, Gary. From the moment I arrived, Mary and her fiancé were consumed in their own conversation, paying no attention to the both of us. It was fine, as Gary seemed to be a great lad with a great chat. He asked me why I was single, and I told him that I was in a happy, committed relationship. He was very taken aback by my answer. He told me that Mary had set up a blind double date of sorts for the both of us. I was very confused and slightly angry, and I didn't want to be confrontational at lunch, especially in public, so I just carried on with the lunch. Luckily, Gary wasn't upset and ended up making a few jokes about the whole ordeal. I called Mary later in the day and asked her a ton of questions about why she thought that it was okay to do that. At first she tried to deny it, but then she tried to justify it by saying that Gary is a man who is more in my league, and since he was also a groomsman, we needed to get to know each other better. I was shocked by her bluntness, so I just told her that I didn't want to be her bridesmaid anymore. Granted, it was a pretty impulsive decision, but I still stand by it. Mary didn't take it well, trying to apologize and saying that it was a mistake. It's been a few days, and her fiancé has been texting me, asking me to suck it up for the wedding. I feel petty and conflicted right now. And edit, Jack knows about the date. I wouldn't keep that from him. I can get why you don't want to be her bridesmaid anymore. Oh my god, that is seriously ludicrous behavior from her. She needs to sit down and reflect on her actions and slap herself in the face for being such an idiot. I would absolutely not be surprised if Jack never wants to talk to her ever again. Who cares if he comes from a very wealthy background? Like, everything she's said about Jack and your relationship, that is grounds for me just being like, we have a history together, but F you. Well, you're not my friend anymore. Get out of my life. You've revealed some true colors you've been hiding under there, and I don't want to see you ever again. How dare you say that about me and my partner? And how dare you set me up on a blind date? This is just too much for me to deal with. I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, a Wickfield says, "You are so absolutely not the asshole, and you should have dumped this friend the minute she told you Jack was too good for you. Don't let her change your mind." This, not the a-hole. She sounds kind of jealous, to be honest, but this conniving behavior is insane. Be sure to block any more flying monkeys coming your way about, "Just suck it up for the wedding," that's what she said. And OP replies, "The phrase flying monkeys gave me a small laugh. Thank you." And Advice is on the House replies, "This girl is not your friend. She's jealous your partner is good looking and well off. I would not only not be her bridesmaid, but I also wouldn't attend the wedding. She has no respect for your relationship, and I would simply tell her fiancé that you stand by your decision, and he should be questioning whether or not he wants to marry someone that acts that way." Novel Ad 7318 says, "Not the a-hole." What the hell? Is she jealous or something, because it strongly sounds like it? She not only set you up, she also hurt Gary over this. This is absolutely terrible, and if this is some weird perfect upstaging wedding ploy, she needs to stop now. It is entirely understandable to distance yourself from someone who gaslights and manipulates you like this. She has been actively insulting you. Like, it wasn't because she was worried about you. She thinks you aren't good enough and don't deserve him. This is absolutely disgusting to say to someone that you consider a friend, and it might hurt your relationship if you have this going on. She was willing to lie to one man. What if she takes that further? Run and don't look back. This woman is vile. God, that's so true. Gary was probably looking forward to the date and was starting to like her, and then gets shot down. Not really, but you know what I mean. Does Mary's fiancé not see what a total jerk she is? It's like, hey, let's get your friend's hopes up even though she's in a relationship. Maybe she'll break up with her boyfriend for a guy she's met once. Like, WTF? And our next post is by user Phil and Friends, titled, Am I the asshole for how I responded when my stepdad asked why I didn't bring him a Father's Day gift? Context. My mum remarried when my brother and I were kids. My brother never accepted my mum's marriage, neither had I, but my brother was honest and clear about how much he disliked my stepdad for treating us like second-class citizens, forcing us to stay home and not visit family on every holiday. We had no birthday parties and were forced to work as assistants in his auto shop. My brother was isolated because of his attitude towards our stepdad and was sent to live with my aunt 8 hours away for 2 years. And I remember begging Mum to take me to see him, but said my stepdad is the one with a car and couldn't take me. I kept in contact with my brother after he was banned from the house. I was 14 at the time and couldn't travel to see him. He passed away in a car accident a week before my 15th birthday. I was devastated that I wasn't able to see, hug, and vent to him one last time. My mum got busy with my half-sister, but gradually I was forced to care for her because of my stepdad saying God sent her instead of my deceased brother. I love my sister, but I was a mourning mess still because of my brother and wasn't ready for this. I moved out at 19. My mum helped with money and we maintained a relationship, but I never visit except for my mum's family, my grandparents and aunts and uncle and half-sister. I see my stepdad there occasionally and I ignore him, but we act civil. We were gathered at my grandpa's house for Father's Day. I bought my grandpa and uncle gifts and they were happy to receive them. My stepdad spoke up and said that I should have given him a gift as well since he's a father figure to me, and then asked why I didn't. I laughed and told him not to worry, I'll get him a gift on Narcissist's Day. Most of the family burst into laughter. My stepdad's face turned red and he was about to blow up after hearing my response. He then excused himself to the bathroom. My mum was very upset with me but waited till I was alone, and she got mad at me for treating her husband like this and shames me for basically calling him a narcissist in front of her family. She said she won't let me leave until I've apologized profusely for not getting him a gift, and then doubling down and being spiteful and humiliating him in front of everybody. But I refused to do it and told her off. My aunts were upset too, and thought that it was an inappropriate response from me and ruining Father's Day for my stepdad who's done a lot for me. Was I the asshole for how I responded? I apologize for any errors. I'm a 24-year-old male, by the way, sorry for the confusion. Now in the comments, Ann Standard Boy says, not the a-hole. You are not an a-hole for telling the truth. Ah yes, all those things he did for me, like teasing me like a second-class citizen, cutting me off from my brother so I had no relationship with him before he died, and forcing me to help parent his daughter. You're right, I probably should have been a little harder on him. Them. He fed you, he gave you a roof over your head. Me. Oh, you just mean the things he was legally required to do so as not to go to jail for neglect? Let the government give him a gift for that one. No, don't forget assisting at his shop, which just sounds like a euphemism for child labor. Don't forget sending OP's poor brother away for his attitude and robbing them from a relationship. Poor brother. He died away from family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc., and stepdad has the audacity to ask for a gift? No, not the a-hole. And then on top of that, he says that God sent a baby to replace the dead boy. That's just several layers of screwed up. And Cut Unique says, not the a-hole. Karma's a bitch, and he deserved it after how he treated you. Is your bio dad in your life? And if so, do you have a good relationship with him? And OP replies, no. My mum was a single mother before meeting my stepdad. Our biological father wasn't there, and we never had a relationship with him. We grew up very close to my mum's side of the family. I was blessed to have my grandparents and uncle in my life, and they'll always be a big part of my life no matter what happens in the family. Then, as long as you can stay close to them, don't apologize to anyone, dude. Screw any other family that disagrees. And Gloomy Awareness says, not the a-hole. A Father's Day gift is supposed to be for the men who are father figures to you. He, on the other hand, is nothing but an abusive man who assumed that he's your father simply because he married your mother and gained some sort of upper hand in your family. Am I the asshole for asking my neighbors to keep their kids inside at certain times? Now, the title is a bit confusing, but the situation is simple. I, 35 female, just moved in with my husband, 43 male, and our dog, who is a pit bull mix, and who has never had an actual yard to play in. We got him when we still lived in an apartment, and needless to say, he's having the time of his life out there. The problem is that we have neighbors, a husband and a wife, with 4 kids, all of whom are quite young, and our dog barks incessantly whenever they're in the yard at the same time. I talked to my husband and decided to ask the parents if they could prevent the children from going outside at certain times that our dog was out there. But the wife told me that it was ridiculous and that I shouldn't expect them to keep their kids inside just because our dog isn't trained. That set me off, and I snapped at him and told him that that was uncalled for and that he had to compromise a little bit. But the husband stepped in and said that he understands the predicament, but that his wife is right, and that I shouldn't expect them to bend over backwards just because our dog isn't trained. And then they shut the door. I want to say that I'm not the asshole, but I'm feeling conflicted. Am I? Yes, I think you are the asshole in this situation. I think you need to train your dog. I think you need to stop it barking as much and get it to learn how to coexist with these kids without being that excited. It is possible. You asking them to keep the kids inside is extremely entitled. It is the most convenient thing for you, but it's also the most inconvenient thing for them. And it's an unnecessary hassle being like, oh, do we let the kids outside? Are we going to have to ask the neighbors for permission this time to let our kids in our yard? Their dog might start barking. Don't want to upset them now, do I? You see where that might be a problem, and you should just, fix this by training your dog. You're the asshole. Now in the comments, Dragonaut says, this exactly. Their kids have every right to be in their garden whenever they see fit, and you have a duty to train your dog so that they can enjoy it without him barking. You're the asshole. Imagine trying to train your whole entire neighborhood instead of your spoiled dog. You're the asshole. Look, that doesn't sound that unbelievable to me. I once had a neighbor who yelled at me for 1, putting corn cobs in my compost pile, and 2, not having a dog-proof fence. I did not own a dog. She was mad at me because her crappy dog kept breaking through her crappy fence and coming into my yard to dig corn cobs out of my compost pile. I couldn't get it through her trashy skull that it wasn't my responsibility to fence her dog out. It was her responsibility to fence her dog in. And that furthermore, I didn't need a dog-proof fence, or any fence because I did not have an effing dog. Plenty of dogs and dog owners are absolute delights, but the exceptions really take the cake. And the corn cobs, apparently. Yeah, so my neighbor stands outside with a spray bottle when her dog barks. She sprays all the neighborhood animals that the dog barks at instead of her own barking dog. Super Judy 1 says, you're the asshole. It is ridiculous, and you shouldn't expect them to keep their kids inside because your dog isn't trained. It really is. I don't see a single not the asshole so far. That's how ridiculous this is. I can't believe OP doubled down. Entitlement that thick doesn't happen overnight. I feel for the neighbors. And Niara says, you're the asshole, and you just ruined your reputation with your new neighbors, who have done nothing wrong. And probably within the neighborhood, you are that person now. Train your dog and keep him inside when their children are out. You just know those neighbors have quietly spoken to the other neighbors to warn them about the bad neighbors with the untrained pit bull who's hostile towards children. I guarantee you everyone has animal control on speed dial now and is just waiting for the day they need it. The OP has just guaranteed nobody in their neighborhood will give their pup a fair shake. You're the asshole for so many reasons. And honestly, it's people like OP who give pit bulls a terrible reputation. If you're going to get a high-energy dog with an unfortunate reputation, you need to do your damnedest to make sure it's trained impeccably. I mean, anyone getting a pit bull while living in an apartment was never getting off to a great start. Am I the asshole for calling my sister-in-law a racist after she compared my cooking to making Kung Pao chicken? Now for context, I've been married to my wife for around 10 years, and we're a mixed-race couple. I'm Asian and she's Caucasian. I've gotten along with her family, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, but I always felt like her father-in-law and other sister-in-law, Sarah, never liked me. So I'm a professionally trained chef with 15 plus years of experience, and I work at a high-end Chinese restaurant, a spin-off of a popular one in Beijing, in a large US city. My crew and I have won several awards, and I've been explicitly told that I'll be the next executive chef. Sarah is also a professionally trained chef and works at a popular upscale French restaurant in the city. She constantly brags about it, and no joke, compares herself out loud to Ramsay and Bourdain. Whenever I'm at my mother-in-law and father-in-law's house and helping out in the kitchen, Sarah is always criticizing everything I do. Whether it's chopping, braising, marinating, etc., she always butts in with comments like, I think you should actually do X like this. Now, I've been patient for my wife and sidestepping those comments, saying things like, thanks, but I think I'll stick to the way I do it. Things came to a head 2 weeks ago when my wife, father-in-law, and mother-in-law and I were in her parents' kitchen preparing dinner for my mother-in-law's birthday. We were running a bit behind, so things were heated, which I kind of like because it reminded me of my work, and that's when Sarah walked in. She took one look at what I was doing, scoffed, and said something like, oh wow, okay, so that's not the right way of doing this. And it hit a nerve, and I pretty sternly told her to stop criticizing my cooking, and that I'm also a chef like her. She laughed and said, making Kung Pao chicken at some Chinese restaurant doesn't count. The kitchen went silent. Father-in-law snorted and chuckled, and my mother-in-law yelled, Sarah, what is wrong with you? I stopped what I was doing, swore at her, and called her a racist piece of crap, apologized to my mother-in-law for not being able to stay, and left for home with my wife. Apparently this caused a massive fight after we left, with my mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and other sister-in-law taking my side, and my father-in-law and Sarah saying that it was a joke but it's kind of true, and that I was being too sensitive. The extended family somehow got wind of this, and now everyone is arguing and taking sides, with my wife even getting texts from some of her cousins apologizing for Sarah's behavior. Despite being on my side, my wife is begging me to apologize so that the fighting will stop, but I refuse to because F Sarah and her blatant racism. Edit. My wife has also informed me that now Sarah may be in trouble at work, and she's blaming me for it. Apparently one of her co-workers heard her rant about what happened and reported it to management. Edit, to clarify, Sarah is blaming me, though my wife is partly blaming me. Edit 2/update, so it looks like one of my wife's cousins found the post and put it on Sarah's Facebook wall going, this is you, right? Her Facebook friends are starting to comment with things like, if this is you, Sarah, then I'm disappointed. I think Sarah's still at work and crap might be hitting the fan soon, and now my wife is pissed off too. We'll try to update, but might have to delete post if things go nuclear. Edit 3/update 2 was considering removing, but I just got a voicemail from my father-in-law that my presence was only being tolerated up until this point, and threatened a world of hurt if I didn't delete this post. Officially going to keep this post up, and if you're still reading this, Doug, I'm very disappointed in you. You are better than this. We'll also continue to update, and thanks again for all of your support, folks. Edit 4/update 3, lots of stuff just went down. 1. My wife got a call from sister-in-law, from wife's paraphrasing. Sarah started screaming and crying at her the moment my wife picked up, and said that she just got demoted because of her Asian slur husband. Apparently some of her co-workers have her on Facebook and showed the post to management, which, combined with her earlier rant, double whammied her back to being a line cook, and now she might get fired. My wife told her to go screw herself, and is now solidly on my side after taking the verbal abuse from Sarah, and now reading some of the comments here. My wife is still the opposite of happy though. 2. My wife called my mother-in-law and asked her what the hell was going on with father-in-law. Mother-in-law was confused, so my wife played back the voicemail that I had on my phone, and apparently my mother-in-law literally just walked away from the phone without hanging up and started screaming at father-in-law. 3. Facebook post has now devolved into a clusterfuck flame war with family and friends jumping in. Suffice to say, it has officially gone nuclear. Now in the comments, Outside Spring says, "Not the asshole. Screw Sarah, screw Doug. That is blatant racism. Good on you for keeping the post up despite Doug's little world of hurt threat, Lamau. Not the asshole, you handled this situation 100% the right way in my opinion. You body-checked the sister-in-law for blatant racism, showed respect by apologizing when you did nothing wrong, and then went so far as to extricate yourself from conflict by going home. Anything that happened after you left has nothing to do with you, and in my opinion, you've apologized sufficiently to the in-laws. To your wife, I'd give her a separate apology for not begging further forgiveness from anyone else. Then I'd gently remind her that yeah, they are her family, but so are you, so she doesn't have to take sides and stuff will work itself out. Not the asshole at all. This girl went nuclear on her own life all by herself. And father-in-law too, I guess, because he sounds like a jerk as well. The fact that someone else posted it to her Facebook is also not your fault. So don't let anyone drag you under the bus for posting here for advice. It is always nice when racists get told off, and it sounds like she doesn't have many on her side. And as far as your wife, honestly, it bothers me that she wants you to apologize to just keep the peace. I would explore that a little further, to be honest, and have a talk with her about why she's so quick to push the racism aside when it's so clearly important, and she's supposed to have your back. Also, I'm thrilled to hear people at her job got wind of this and aren't happy with her. She can take her snobby attitude somewhere else. That kind of holier-than-thou mentality doesn't last long in working kitchens anyway. And our next post is by user ThrowRABF Troubles, titled, "Am I the asshole for not going to family dinners because they fit the time with my sister's schedule and never mine?" So I, 20 female, work full-time, 8 to 5 Monday to Friday. I'm currently working from home due to world events, and I also live on my own. My sister, 18 female, goes to college classes in the evenings and works a couple days a week. Ever since my sister has started her evening college classes, a couple months now, every family event is centered around her schedule. Her college classes start at 5 in the evening, so our schedules overlap, meaning that if we have dinner, they eat before I'm off to work to coordinate with my sister, so when I get there around 5:15 to 5:30, I'm stuck eating alone while everyone else has already ate, or sometimes is already leaving. The issue in this matter is my grandma's birthday party. My mum put it together, same sort of deal. My sister had class, I had work until 5. I asked if instead of centering it around my sister's schedule, if she could be the one to eat early and we fit it into my schedule this time. My mum said that it makes more sense to fit around my sister's schedule. When I asked why, because I literally couldn't think of a difference that it would make, she just said, it just does. I spoke with my grandmother, and she said she would wait to eat with me, but everyone else wouldn't. She also could not understand the reasoning behind it, but she said since she was not the one cooking or planning, she didn't feel she had much control over it. I told my mum that unless we could start altering, fitting with my sister's schedule one time then mine the next, I would just start skipping out on family dinners and that it was not always fun to have to be the one eating alone. My mum told me that I was being an asshole and immature about the whole thing. I just don't feel it's fair the way we're doing it right now. Mine and my sister's are the only schedules that need to be worked around. Am I the asshole here? And editing to clarify a couple of things. Weekend dinners are not usually an option, as my grandmother still works, by choice, on the weekends, so weekday evenings are usually better as she's not working. These family dinners are not a nightly thing, more of a couple times a month for things like birthdays, graduations, or sometimes just to eat, but it's not nightly. My sister does not live at home either. She lives with her boyfriend, which is a whole different train wreck, so she's driving to my mum's as well. only adding this to clarify that they definitely could alter between us since she's having to come over as well. They just don't. My parents are divorced, and this is my mother's side of the family, so my dad has no input here. I do provide some of the food for the dinners as well, and sometimes I will bring a dessert or something. But usually I'll provide some of the food that will be cooked, like meat to be grilled as an example, since I can't bring a side dish because everyone has already ate before I get there. Well, in that case, I'm gonna say that that's pretty fair. She doesn't have any other reason besides, it just does. That means I'd rather fight with you than the sister, because the sister will make everyone's life a living hell. At least you have some sense about you, so unfortunately, you're the one that has to get screwed over consistently because it's just easier. And I'm sorry I beat that one like a dead horse, but it's just the common thread in Am I the Asshole? I really don't like that, it rubs me the wrong way, and it enrages me. I'm gonna go with not the asshole for this one. Screw that mum and her planning. If you don't want to go to these family dinners, you shouldn't have to. Just skip out on a few until your message gets received. Now in the comments, Candy2228 says, not the asshole. Why go to a family event if you're going to be alone anyway? And OP replies, right, that's my thoughts. If it wasn't for my grandmother wanting to see most of us together tomorrow, I wouldn't go. And I would just see her another day. It makes no sense. And Purple Elderberry replies, don't go to any others unless your grandmother is there, or others who want you around. Maybe start having dinners with just your grandmother. I'm sure she'd love individual bonding time with you. She sounds lovely. I love this. I used to do this with my grandma before she left the country. Not the asshole. Your request wasn't unreasonable. They seem biased towards your sister. And OP replies, this is what I thought of as well. I could see getting angry if I just wanted my schedule to be worked around, but just altering would be fair, I think. Absolutely. You're not asking for anything outrageous. You're asking for it to be fair. Sorry that they're like that and you're having to put up with it/eat alone. And Pancake Supremes 12MD says, not the asshole. Dinner before 5 is honestly really early, and it isn't fair that you aren't able to eat with family. In my opinion, it would make sense to plan dinners around your schedule timing-wise. And besides, the way things are right now, your family is making you feel unwelcome. Your mum's reasoning doesn't make sense unless it means that they don't value your time as much as your sister's, which isn't fair. And our next post is by user Gobble Me Swallow Me, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my mum to stop treating my brother like a kid? So I, 21 female, recently had a big fight with my mum. My brother, 17 male, has always been my mother's favorite. And no, I'm not just saying this, but she tells this to everyone around her. So since we were kids, he has been coddled his whole life. She checks his computer, his phone, barges into his room without knocking, and even tries to hand feed him at this age. Anyways, he's a teen, and now absolutely hates that he doesn't get his privacy and independency. Anyways, it's the pandemic, and he had this date with a girl. In my place, the pandemic is handled good, so we can go to cafes if we follow the rules. My brother even told my mum about the date, and guess who followed him all the way? My mum. She sat in a booth nearby pretending to hide, and then my brother said that he went to the bathroom and his date followed him. He said that he did it because he saw our mum there, and just wanted to kiss his date away from our mum's prying eyes. Anyway, they were in there for like 5 minutes, where my mum barged in, physically separated them, and yelled at the girl for ruining her baby and that she was a bad influence. It got worse, up to the point the girl called our family a bunch of creeps and left. My mum didn't stop. She was like, baby, did she hurt you? Are you okay? And my brother, who never cried in public as a teen, called me crying to come pick him up because he was that embarrassed. I went, and my mum wouldn't let him come with me because she said only she can calm her baby. That's when I told her that he is calm and is just effing mad at her because she's treating him like he is 10, and that's embarrassing. All this happened in the parking lot outside the cafe where my mum dragged my brother and his date out, And after I took my brother to my apartment, we talked, and he doesn't want to go back home because of many other incidents too. My mum is calling and texting saying that I have no right to act like an asshole and embarrass her in public. And even my dad says my way of handling the situation is completely wrong. I still refuse to apologize, so does that make me an asshole? This seems like it was pulled straight out of r/entitled parents, and if people like this do really exist in real life, I feel so bad for this young boy. To have your mother mollycoddle you like this until you're 17, and then stalk you, and then physically separate you from a girl that you're trying to date. Ouch, and yikes, what the hell? That would be grounds for me to just abandon that house straight up and go live with OP in this situation. I don't see why he hasn't done that already. I'm guessing the mum goes crazy when something like that is suggested. But yeah, I'm gonna go with not the a-hole for this one. OP is just protecting their sibling, as they should be, and that's a really good thing. So thank you for that, OP. Don't apologize. Now in the comments, Chance Guidance 9066 says, "Not the asshole. Sounds like he's done with how she is and is trying to cut the apron strings." And OP replies, "Yep, he loves her but says that being home is suffocating. I keep telling my mum that at this rate he won't even contact her as an adult in the future." That is very true. Her smothering him to the point of treating him like a baby, and if it continues even after he moves, then he might go no contact. Once he's 18 and away from her, he can have her arrested for stalking. The woman is way past normal. Unfortunately, it's not just that easy. My friend's mum is abusive and literally stalks him. He's talked to police and authorities countless times, and they just brush it off and are like, if she hasn't physically attacked you, there's nothing we can do. He's been gathering evidence of her behavior for years, and it results in zero help from anyone. Ouch, I've heard of this pattern of behavior by police forces. I think it's probably because he's 6'2" and a guy. People look at him and think, how can you be afraid of a woman, especially your own mother? I guess it doesn't matter that she's picked up a knife, because if she doesn't use it, it's not a problem. Not the asshole. What your mum is doing is creepy and inappropriate, and is going to ruin his life. I'm not being dramatic. Someone needs to help your brother set some boundaries with your emotionally incestuous mother now. And it seems like you're up to the task. And I mean, with the way that she separated the brother from his date, as if she was some competition for Mother Dearest's affections, that's entering into Creepsville levels of perhaps beyond emotionally incestuous feelings. Or was that just my skin crawling there? And RTGD says, "Not the arsehole. One of the roles of an older sibling is to protect the younger one. Sometimes you have to protect them from your parents. You can suggest that if he wants to go out again, you'll be the chaperone. You can tell your parents that you two are hanging out, which is technically true, and just make sure you're not being followed. This should give him cover until he's 18. He won't like it, but who's the better tag-along, you or mum? Unfortunately, you will have to return him to your parents." And OP replies, "Yeah, they are playing this card. He's 17, so he has to go back home. He's going to be 18 in 5 months. And that person replies to OP, "So chaperoning him for 5 months will likely get annoying soon. I'd be over it after 1 month, but I'm more of an introvert. I don't know how long you'll last, but he'll love you." Now the real question is, how far do you/he want to take this? Where do you live, and is there room for him for 5 months? Do the police follow up on missing persons and teen runaways? And at his age, most large city cops can't be bothered, especially if you can prove you're not holding him hostage or kidnapping or otherwise contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He could even file emancipation paperwork. I doubt if it'll go anywhere in 5 months, but it'll provide you the legal cover to not have to return him. Of course, whenever he wants to go home, he should. You are his safe place, and as a big sis, it's great. Exhausting, but great. Good luck to you both." And OP replies, "I doubt my mum will keep quiet if he doesn't go home now. My place is big, so as soon as he turns 18, if he wants, he can always stay home. Chaperoning him isn't going to be the tough part. Handling my mum after he moves out is going to be. I'm already dreading that. And they reply to OP again, oh, I know she won't keep quiet. Actions have consequences. Her consequence is your brother is planning his escape. You two don't have to wait until he's 18. As he's so close, there are ways to legally cover yourselves. But she will become a major pain in your ass. It'll probably drive him further away, but there will be drama.